Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook Library, a sanctuary of stories where fan fictions come alive, where ancient legends echo from the East and Western worlds awaken with wonder. Settle in. Your journey begins now.
DxD. I Steal Luck Chapter 21. Eliminating future threats. The training hall of the Black Blade Gang was massive, designed for sparring and combat drills. It could easily accommodate over 300 members, and tonight, it was packed. At the front of the room, 4 men sat on elevated chairs, their presence commanding immediate respect. These were the gang's 4 hall masters, seasoned criminals who had fought and bled for the gang's leader, their authority second only to his. Everyone else stood, waiting. "Hey, Godu, any idea why the boss called us in?" One of the hall masters leaned in, irritation clear in his voice. "I was about to seal the deal with a fine little thing when you dragged me out." Godu scowled. "No clue. But it sounded urgent. I heard he took nearly 100 men out earlier. Maybe it's got something to do with that. Could be those punks from the last turf war trying to claw their way back." None of them had any idea that their boss had sent those 100 men after a single target, Blake Silva. And that every last one of them was now dead. The heavy wooden doors groaned as they swung open. All eyes turned toward the entrance, expecting to see their leader, Hideki Nozaki. Instead, a lone figure stepped inside. Blake. His silver hair shimmered under the dim lights, but it was the blood-streaked sword at his hip and the quiet storm of killing intent radiating from him that sent a chill through the room. "Is everyone here?" His voice was calm, but the cold edge in his tone cut through the silence like a blade. Godu frowned. "They're all here. Did the boss send you?" His gaze flicked to the sword, unease settling in. The other hall masters weren't as slow to realize the danger. Their eyes narrowed, their hands subtly drifting toward the weapons at their waists. Blake didn't answer. Instead, he reached back and shut the doors, locking them with a quiet click. Then, he moved. A blur of motion. A flash of silver. Godu gasped, his hands clutching at his throat as blood spilled between his fingers. His knees buckled, and he collapsed without another word. "Shit. He's an enemy." One of the hall masters roared, ripping a pistol from his jacket. The others followed suit, weapons drawn in an instant. But it didn't matter. Gunfire erupted, the sharp cracks echoing through the hall. The gangsters fired wildly, bullets tearing into walls and shattering lights, but none found their mark. Blake weaved through them like a phantom, his sword an extension of his will. Every strike was precise, every movement effortless. One by one, they fell, throats slashed, chests punctured, lives snuffed out before they even understood what was happening. The battle lasted no more than 10 minutes. Then, silence. The air was thick with the scent of blood. Corpses lay in heaps, the floor slick with crimson. In less than 2 hours including travel time, Blake had wiped out one of the city's most dominant gangs. If it weren't for the trip, he could have done it in 30 minutes. Ding. Mission complete. Reward. 100 luck points. Current luck points. 225. The system's notification echoed in his mind, but Blake barely reacted. He exhaled sharply and dropped into a chair, finally allowing himself to rest. His muscles ached, his strength nearly spent. Between the relentless combat and the continuous use of his sensory dampening ability, exhaustion had begun to creep in. Still, he felt no remorse. No guilt. Killing this many in a single night might have shaken most men. But to him, it was just another step forward. These scumbags had chosen their fate the moment they crossed him. More importantly, they had dared to threaten Irie. That alone had sealed their doom. A sudden vibration cut through the silence. A phone. Blake glanced down and spotted it lying beside one of the corpses. He reached over and picked it up. An unread email. Sender, Yuta Miki. Recipient, silver-haired Lord. Subject, a humble request. White-haired Lord, we are members of the Tiger Gang, former enemies of the Black Blade Gang. We humbly request your protection and acceptance. Blake's lips curled slightly. Well, he muttered, nudging the corpse of a hall master with his boot. Looks like this guy was playing both sides, or maybe the Tiger Gang set him up. Either way, it wasn't his problem. He tapped the screen and dialed the sender's number. The call was answered almost instantly. Hello. A nervous voice stammered on the other end. Blake leaned back, his tone unreadable. It's me. A sharp inhale. Lord. Will you accept us? I'm calling for one reason. Handle the police for me, and I'll give you the Black Blade Gang's territory. Dead silence. Then, what? Are you serious? Believe it or don't, Blake said flatly. I can always give it to another gang. No, we'll handle it. You won't hear a peep from the cops. Good. Blake hung up without another word. Becoming a gang boss in this mundane world. That held no appeal. But using gangs to clean up his messes. Now that was useful. Chapter 22. Irie's sinister plan through surveillance. The Tiger Gang had witnessed the carnage at the assembly hall. The sight of a single silver-haired youth slaughtering over 300 armed men had almost made them wet themselves in fear. However, the leader of the Tiger Gang, Mickey, considered himself clever. Initially, he thought he would be the first to pledge loyalty to this godlike figure, seeing it as an opportunity. But to his surprise, the silver-haired young man simply handed over the Black Blade Group's territory as if it were a gift. Mickey immediately mobilized the network of connections and power he had accumulated over the years to help Blake clean up the situation, shouldering all the blame himself. He also issued strict warnings to his subordinates not to provoke Blake. If the opportunity arose, they were to assist him to the best of their abilities. Soon after, the police had no choice but to withdraw, labeling the incident as a violent gang conflict. As for Akazuki Kuzu, who was found dead during the investigation, the police merely classified him as an unlucky bystander caught in the chaos. Blake, however, had no interest in the aftermath. After leaving the place, he went home, showered to wash away the scent of blood, and calmed himself to suppress the killing intent that had built up from his earlier actions. He soon returned to his usual self, gentle but with a faint air of mischief. His deep blue eyes, more captivating than ever, exuded a unique charm. After sending Irie a quick message, Blake enjoyed a restful sleep, only waking as dusk fell. Ding. Task issued. Win over the Akazuki sisters. Reward. 30 fortune points. Blake, just finishing washing his face, nearly spat out water, looking utterly bewildered. Sia, does the system seriously issue tasks like this? System task issuance is random. Tasks like this also happen sometimes. Sia's usually sweet voice had a hint of embarrassment, suggesting she too was taken aback by the nature of the task. So, the system is encouraging me to start a harem. How considerate, Blake muttered sarcastically as he hung up his towel. He then left for Irie's house. After ringing the Akazuki household doorbell, he heard footsteps approaching. Moments later, the door opened, and Irie immediately pulled him inside and shut the door. Blake, what happened this morning? Why did you tell us to stay hidden? Sitting on the couch, Irie clung to Blake's right arm, looking at him with curiosity. Marina, sitting to his left, also fixed her purple eyes on him. The sisters had been startled by Blake's early morning call, especially given its urgency, disrupting their sleep after a late-night conversation. It was chaotic outside today, Blake said simply, keeping his response brief. He didn't want to trouble them with the bloody details of what had transpired. Chaotic. Irie frowned, pouting slightly at his vague answer. But seeing his serious expression, she didn't press further. Both sisters were secretly pleased. It was clear he was worried about their safety. I'm going to take a shower. You two chat for a bit, Irie said suddenly, her brows relaxing as a mysterious smile spread across her face. She winked at Blake before darting off. Blake watched her leave, confused. Irie rarely bathed this early in the evening. Usually, she preferred to do so late at night. What was she up to? Why is Irie sneaking glances from the corner after saying she was going to shower? Blake muttered to himself, noticing her gaze from the shadows. He couldn't figure out her game. Silva. Marina's soft voice broke the silence, her tone shy and hesitant. Yes, Blake replied, turning to her with a smile. He was surprised to see her blushing, her delicate face flushed with embarrassment. I, Marina stammered, struggling to find the right words as her hands balled into fists. She seemed to be summoning her courage but couldn't get her thoughts out, her voice barely audible. Thank you for saving me yesterday. She finally blurted out, her face a mix of gratitude and frustration. Blake couldn't quite understand her conflicted emotions. It's no problem. We're friends, aren't we? He replied warmly, smiling at her. Honestly, What is wrong with those two? Irie groaned from her hiding spot, burying her face in her hands in frustration. My sister is just too shy. Looks like I'll have to step in and use the final measure. With that, she sighed, pulling a small spray canister from her pocket, the same one Akazuki Kuzu had used against her. Chapter 23. Irie's Assist. In the Akazuki household living room, Marina sat stiffly on the sofa, her fingers nervously gripping the hem of her dress. Her violet eyes darted toward Blake, the very image of calm and confidence. She tried to speak, tried to force words out, but nothing came out the way she wanted. Why was she so timid? Irie had spent all night hyping her up, even making sacrifices to help her gain the courage to confess. And yet, every time she opened her mouth, the words came out wrong. Blake, noticing her discomfort, frowned slightly and reached out. Marina, are you feeling okay? Before she could react, his warm hand pressed against her forehead. No fever. The unexpected touch sent a shockwave through her body. Her face burned crimson, her purple eyes flickering with panic. Too close. Too close. Too close. She could barely breathe. This was the first time she had ever been this close to a man. A sudden exasperated sigh shattered the moment. That's it. I can't stand this anymore. Blake barely had time to turn before Irie stormed over, hands on her hips, looking like she was about to start a fight. Irie, what are you doing? He asked, confused by her outburst. His gaze flickered between her annoyed expression and Marina's panicked one. It didn't take a genius to realize that whatever was going on with Marina had something to do with Irie. Big sis, I'm sorry. But for your sake, I have no choice. Irie ignored Blake completely and turned to her sister. Marina's brows furrowed in confusion, but before she could react, Irie pulled a spray bottle from her pocket. And the NPSSHHH. She sprayed it directly into Marina's face. Cough. Cough. Irie, what the hell? Marina waved her hands wildly, trying to disperse the pink mist. She glared at Irie, her expression a mix of shock and irritation. But then her pupils suddenly dilated, her breath quickened, and a strange heat spread through her body. Her expression quickly turned from annoyance to something else entirely. Blake, meanwhile, had gone completely still. His crystal blue eyes locked onto the spray bottle in Irie's hand, his lips twitching slightly. Is that what I think it is? Irie, looking far too smug, gave her sister a pat on the shoulder. Big sis, this is for your own good. Just relax and enjoy it. Then, she turned to Blake and huffed dramatically. Blake, this is as far as I can help you. Now it's your turn. Blake blinked. What? Irie crossed her arms and tilted her head. You heard me. Win over my sister. Blake felt like his brain had just short-circuited. What kind of insane situation was this? Not only was his girlfriend approving of him pursuing another woman, but she was also actively assisting in making it happen. This is amazing. And to think I was actually worried about how to complete that double date mission. I didn't expect Irie to take matters into her own hands. Realizing this, Blake grinned knowingly and gave Irie a subtle thumbs up. Irie rolled her eyes, but there was a faint smile on her lips. HMPH. Men really are all the same. Still, she had to admit she appreciated Blake's honesty. If he had hesitated, if he had pretended to be noble, she would have looked down on him. But no, the man she had chosen. He owned his desires without any shame. All right, Irie added casually, just be gentle. It's my sister's first time. She can't handle someone like you going wild. Blake's eyes flickered with amusement. Got it. Game over for Marina. Just then a soft, intoxicating voice broke through the tension. Blake. Give me. Blake turned just in time to see Marina, fully dazed, her violet eyes glazed over with something dangerously close to desire. Her fingers trembling were already pulling at his shirt. Blake exhaled. Welp. No point in holding back now. From the sofa to the bed, Blake lay comfortably, a satisfied smirk playing on his lips. On either side of him, Irie and Marina slept soundly wrapped in nothing but silky white sheets. Their fair skin pressed against his, their arms draped around him like clingy octopuses. He exhaled. Now this is life. He had expected Marina to take a lot longer to warm up to him. But thanks to Irie's assistance, things had escalated much faster than anticipated. Ding. Mission accomplished. You've earned 30 luck points. Current total 255 luck points. A notification chimed in his mind, but the system had been thoughtful enough to delay it until now. Sia was considerate like that. She never interrupted battles or other important moments. Blake chuckled. 255 luck points, not bad. His deep blue eyes flickered with thought. Sia, what kind of stuff is usually in a beginner-level lottery? Sia's voice purred in his mind. Master, beginner-level lotteries aren't great. It's mostly low-tier stuff like pistols or tissues. Blake raised an eyebrow. Tissues. Yep. Useless junk. But there are rare items, Sia continued, like the 7S caliber fragments from High School DxD. Blake's interest peaked. S-caliber fragments. MMHMM. Though only two of them, the Holy Sword of Domination and the Holy Sword of Blessing, are available in intermediate lotteries. Blake's mind immediately raced through possibilities. In High School DxD, Xenovia had wielded the Holy Sword of Destruction, a blade so powerful that a single swing could carve a massive crater into the ground. Irina, on the other hand, used the Holy Sword Mimicry, which could shift its form at will, making it incredibly versatile. And yet, these swords were just beginner-tier items. That was insane. Blake's eyes gleamed with ambition. Sia, initiate the low-level lottery. Chapter 24. Judgment Ring. Sia, initiate the low-level lottery. Blake exhaled slowly, steadying himself. This was one of his favorite features, the multiversal lottery, a chance to pull anything from the farthest reaches of existence. Weapons, artifacts, powers, there was no telling what he might get. Understood. Deducting 30 luck points now. Sia's cheerful voice rang out. No spinning wheel. No glowing portal. Just silence, then boom. Fireworks exploded in his vision, a shower of golden sparks illuminating the darkness. As the light faded, two rings materialized in midair, on black, one white. Congratulations, Master. Sia chimed. You've obtained the Judgment Ring from Chivalry of a Failed Knight. A solid beginner item. Blake's crystal blue eyes flickered as knowledge of the rings flooded his mind. Judgment Ring, Black Ring. Sin. Absorbs incoming attacks. White Ring. Punishment. Releases stored energy for a devastating counterattack. A slow smirk formed on his lips. The original owner of these rings had been a villain, but that hardly mattered. The ability to absorb and return attacks. That was an absolute cheat in battle. And now, it was his. Blake's excitement only grew. Sia, keep going. 3 more draws. The anticipation in his voice was unmistakable. The second draw was even better than the ring's top-grade body refinement pill from a world called the Falling Star Immortal Cultivation Realm. Sia's voice practically sparkled as she explained. Master, this is a huge find. This pill will permanently enhance your physique, strengthen your energy foundation, and expand your ether reserves. Blake raised an eyebrow. A pill that could permanently boost his body and energy levels. That was far more valuable than any equipment. But the NHIS luck crashed and burned. The third draw. A palm-sized blue diamond, valuable, sure, but useless in combat. The fourth. A 10-fold concentrated stink bomb, completely worthless unless he wanted to weaponize body odor. Blake sighed, running a hand through his silver hair. Looks like my luck peaked early. With 135 luck points left, he decided to quit while he was ahead. 4 draws had been more than enough for one night. He didn't immediately retrieve the items, either. Irie and Marina were still asleep beside him, their soft breathing filling the room. Waking them up with sudden flashes of energy probably wasn't a great idea. Just as he was about to settle in for the night, Sia's voice cut through the silence, this time, with an unusual hesitation. Master, Sia suggests you consider leaving this world soon. Blake's eyes sharpened. You're saying I've hit a dead zone? No more missions here. For all of Sia's bubbly personality, she never spoke without reason. If she was bringing this up, there was a problem. Yes, exactly, she confirmed. Time in the High School DxD world is still moving while you're here. Every week you spend in this world equals a day passing there. Blake frowned, fingers drumming against the sheets. So if he lingered too long, he'd return to High School DxD with weeks of lost time, potentially missing opportunities or leaving people wondering where the hell he went. Not ideal. His gaze flickered toward Irie and Marina. They had just begun to trust him. Leaving immediately after earning their affection felt wrong. I'll stay for one more week, Blake decided. Leaving right after bonding with them would make me feel like a complete asshole. But Sia, as always, had a solution. Master, for just 30 luck points, you can adjust the time flow. No matter how long you stay in another world, only a week will pass in High School DxD. Blake's tension melted. That was a game changer. That meant he could train, explore, and power up in other worlds without worrying about losing time in his original one. Sia, I owe you one for that. He tilde master is welcome. Blake let out a contented sigh, finally relaxing. The day had been long, brutal, and exhausting, but it had also been productive. He had secured powerful new items, gained a loyal partner, and now had a path forward. Good night, Sia. Good night, Master. Her soft voice faded into silence, leaving only the sound of slow, steady breathing, the tick of the clock, the rise and fall of his chest. For now, all was calm. But in the days to come, that would change. Chapter 25. Back to DxD. The week passed in a blur of warmth and stolen moments. During the day, Blake accompanied Irie and Marina on data strolling through bustling shopping districts, enjoying quiet cafe conversations, and indulging in the simple joy of companionship. At night, their connection deepened. It was a life of comfort, a glimpse of what could be but never what should be. Blake knew better than to get too comfortable. News spread quickly that Masato Uno had died in a car accident and Kuzu Akazuki had been gunned down in a gang shootout. Irie barely batted an eye, muttering, "Bad people always get what they deserve," while sipping her tea. Blake chuckled softly but didn't comment. Marina, on the other hand, looked visibly relieved. The two men had tormented her for far too long. Now, with them erased from existence, the weight on her shoulders had finally lifted. When the week came to an end, Blake bid them farewell. "I have business back home," he told them, his words vague but firm. Irie pouted. Marina hugged him tightly. Neither questioned his decision. With 30 luck points, he adjusted the time flow between worlds before stepping away from the fleeting comfort of peace. Because no matter how tempting it was to stay, he had unfinished business elsewhere. His sister, Leah, was still out there, suffering under their family's cruelty. And until he tore down the ones who hurt her, he had no right to rest. Phew. I'm back. Blake exhaled, taking in the familiar sight of his dimly lit bedroom. The transition between worlds always left him feeling a little off balance, like stepping from a dream into reality. His gaze lingered on his surroundings. The bed, the desk, the faint hum of the city outside, it all felt distant. For a brief second, he almost expected Irie or Marina to be beside him. Goodbye for now. Shaking off the sentiment, he focused on the present. Sia, retrieve the judgment ring and the body refinement pill. A soft chime echoed in his mind. Understood, Master Tilda. With a faint shimmer, the two items materialized on his beta pair of rings, humming with restrained power, and a small porcelain bottle with an otherworldly glow. He placed the black sin ring on his left middle finger and the white punishment ring on his right. A single flex of his hand sent a ripple of energy through his body. Perfect. Then, without hesitation, he uncorked the bottle and swallowed the jade-like pill inside. A moment later, a firestorm erupted inside him, surging through his veins like molten metal. His body trembled as black impurities oozed from his pores, coating his skin in a foul-smelling grime. His lips twitched in disgust. I need a shower. Now. Rushing to the bathroom, he scrubbed himself clean at least 5 times before finally stepping out, hair damp, muscles feeling light and powerful. Standing shirtless before the mirror, dressed only in shorts, he flexed experimentally. His crystal blue eyes gleamed with satisfaction. This is insane. My strength, my endurance, even my ether reserves feel doubled. A casual punch into the air sent a sharp crack echoing through the room. Half a ton of force. Maybe more. With his full strength. Easily a ton. Walls. Gone. I could probably take on a mid-class devil now. But high-class devil, that was another story. Their magic could level mountains, and while the judgment ring could absorb damage, it had its limits. Still, this was a massive step forward. He wasn't just surviving in this world anymore. He was thriving. The sun had long since set by the time Blake decided to head out. His fridge was almost empty after his extended absence, and he needed to grab some food. As he walked through the dimly lit streets, the quiet hum of the city felt almost too peaceful. His mind drifted to his past. There had been a time when loneliness had been his only companion. If not for anime and novels, for the stories that fueled his escape, he wasn't sure if he would have made it this far. But now, he had power. He had purpose. And soon he'd have vengeance. Then, suddenly the streetlight ahead flickered, and went out. A wave of malice rolled over him. His body froze. Not in fear, but in pure instinct. He wasn't alone. Slowly, he reached for Frost Whisper, unzipping the sword bag with deliberate ease. Come out. His voice was calm, yet sharp. I know you're there. A low, guttural chuckle echoed from the darkness. Well, you're not an ordinary human after all. From the shadows, a figure emerged, and it wasn't human. A creature stood beneath the broken streetlight, holding a serrated blade in one hand and a severed woman's head in the other. Its black horns twisted upward, eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger. Blood dripped from its razor-sharp teeth, the scent thick in the air. The creature stepped forward, grinning. Again a welcome from a stray devil. This just got interesting. Chapter 26. The Artful Use of Judgment Ring. Kid, do you know what I hate the most? The voice was guttural, thick with amusement. Blake's sharp gaze locked onto the one-horned devil, who was still gnawing on the face of a lifeless woman. Her final expression was twisted in sheer terror, frozen forever in death. I despise interruptions during my meals. The sound of flesh tearing under the creature's jagged teeth sent a sickening chill through the air. Blake's stomach twisted slightly, but he quickly pushed the feeling down. He had seen his fair share of death, but this was different. This was monstrous. Another stray devil. That's 2 in 3 days. Blake exhaled slowly, his crystal blue eyes narrowing as he took in the grotesque sight. See ya. Scan its information. Understood. A familiar holographic display appeared before his eyes. Stray devil. Buzz age. 85 power level. Mid-class devil luck value. 2520. Blake's lips curled slightly. A mid-class devil. Not bad. Should make for a good warm-up. Meanwhile, Buzz barely acknowledged him, still more focused on his gruesome feast than on the young man standing calmly in front of him. Blake could feel the barrier around the area, a crude but effective spell designed to keep prying eyes away. Clearly, Buzz wasn't worried about anyone escaping. Unfortunately for him, Blake wasn't planning on running. Ding. Task issued. Defeat your first mid-class devil reward. Plus 50 luck points if luck plunder is used to kill. The reward drops to 10 luck points. Blake chuckled softly at the system message. Well, that's basically free luck points. Slowly, he began walking toward the devil. Buzz finally looked up, his yellowed eyes flashing with irritation. Huh. The brat wasn't running. He wasn't trembling. Instead, he was looking at him like prey. Buzz's rage boiled over. Arrogant little shit. Die. With a snarl, he hurled the half-eaten head aside, bent low, and launched himself forward like a cannonball. His jagged blade swung down with a whistling force, aiming to split Blake in half. For an ordinary person, this would have been an instant kill. But Blake was far from ordinary. Everything slowed. Perceptual distortion kicked in, twisting Buzz's movements in Blake's mind. To Blake, the devil moved through molasses, each motion sluggish, each attack predictable. With a simple sidestep, he effortlessly evaded the blow. Crack. The force of the missed attack sent a shockwave through the ground, gouging a deep trench in the pavement. Blake's gaze flickered to the damage. Damn. If he had blocked that head-on, even with Frost Whisper, the impact alone might have shattered the blade. Buzz snarled, swinging again. Another miss. Then another. And another. Each attack came closer, each attack carried more rage, but none of them touched Blake. TCH. All you're doing is dodging, coward. Blake let out a low chuckle. Dodge? No. Your attacks are just too pathetic to bother blocking. Buzz's face twisted in fury. You little. Before the devil could finish his words, his horn began to glow, crackling with dark energy. Shit. That's new. Blake barely had time to react before a thumb-sized gray energy beam exploded forward, heading straight for him at point-blank range. No dodging this one. But he didn't need to. Blake smirked, raising his left hand. Clang. The black judgment ring on his finger shimmered, absorbing the attack completely. Buzz froze. What? Blake's right hand lifted, fingers aimed directly at the devil's chest. A split second later, Buzz's own attack blasted back at him. Splurt. The gray beam pierced straight through Buzz's heart, sending a spray of dark crimson across the cracked pavement. The devil staggered, clutching at his gaping wound. His yellowed eyes widened in sheer disbelief. He had been killed by his own attack. No. This can't. With one last gurgling breath, he collapsed. Ding. Task completed. +50 luck points earned. Current luck 155. Blake let out a slow exhale. Damn, that was easier than I expected. He glanced down at the judgment ring. This thing is way too useful. From the start, he had controlled the entire fight, baiting Buzz, manipulating his attacks, and letting his own arrogance seal his fate. It wasn't strength that won this battle. It was strategy. Blake surveyed the ruined battlefield. The pavement was a wreck. Cracks and gouges littered the ground where Buzz's attacks had missed, showcasing just how much destructive power mid-tier devils actually had. And he had just barely dealt with one. In the grand scheme of things, mid-class devils are nothing. But that doesn't mean they aren't dangerous. Blake sighed, rolling his shoulders. I still have a long way to go. His stomach rumbled. Right. Food. Turning on his heel, he walked away. The barrier dissolved into nothing, fading away with Buzz's death. Blake stuffed his hands into his pockets, his mind already shifting gears. He needed to grow stronger. Faster. Because one day, he wouldn't just be hunting stray devils like Buzz. He'd be facing something much, much worse. Chapter 27. Guide Issei 1. Blake exhaled, crossing his arms as he leaned against a nearby wall. So, what exactly do you need me for? His voice was calm, detached, as if he was already regretting entertaining this conversation. The three idiots in front of him, Issei Hyodo and his equally hopeless friends, exchanged glances before doing something that made even Blake freeze in disbelief. They dropped to their knees. Right there, in the middle of the street. Master, please teach us the secrets of picking up girls. They shouted in perfect unison, bowing deeply as if seeking enlightenment from some divine guru. Blake's eye twitched. What the actual hell? Passers-by stopped to stare. Some looked disgusted. Others whispered among themselves. A few simply shook their heads and walked away. Blake, on the other hand, had no words. These three had no shame. Ding. New task issued. Mentor Issei Hyodo and introduce him to the new world. Reward. 100 destiny points. Blake stiffened. System. You've got to be joking. He was ready to turn and walk away, completely unwilling to deal with this nonsense. Then the task notification appeared. His lips twitched again. 100 destiny points. For this. Still debating whether it was worth it, he heard a quiet, cautious voice in his head. Master, this task has nothing to do with me. It was Sia, his ever-loyal system assistant. Blake sighed. I know, Sia. You're my smart, sweet little spirit. This is just dumb. Thank you, Master. After a brief internal debate, Blake looked down at the three morons still kneeling on the pavement, their expressions determined. They weren't getting up unless he agreed. Fine. Get up. Hee. See that? My ultimate move works. Issei shot a smug grin at his two friends before scrambling to his feet. Blake stared at them for a long moment before finally speaking. Picking up girls mainly depends on looks. Unfortunately, you three don't meet that requirement. The smug grin vanished. Issei's eye twitched as he clenched his fists, glaring at Blake like he was ready to throw hands. You wanna fight? Blake ignored him. Which is why I have a second method. At those words, the trio immediately straightened, their expressions serious. It was as if they were about to receive the secret to life itself. Blake barely suppressed a smirk. The second method is simple. Understand women. The three blinked. You need to win a woman's heart. That's the ultimate secret, the sacred path to success. Looks only take you so far, but understanding. That's the real cheat code. He waved a finger in front of them, his expression serious. Of course, Blake knew exactly what this task truly meant. The so-called new world. It could mean anything: cross-dressing, gender-bending, or something even more absurd. Blake had no intention of training Issei to be some kind of playboy, but screwing with him. That was a different story. Understand women. Win their hearts. The three exchanged confused glances. Blake nodded. Exactly. Think about it. If you truly understand women, you'll know what they want, when they want it, and how to give it to them. He took a step closer, his voice dropping into a conspiratorial whisper. Once you master this skill, You won't need to chase women anymore. The three gasped. They'll come to you. Issei's mouth fell open. His friends looked like they had just been hit with divine revelation. Blake smirked inwardly. Hook. Line. Sinker. Master. You're a genius. This is it. The secret formula. Issei. You're an idiot for not figuring this out sooner. Their eyes sparkled with pure devotion, their previous jealousy of Blake replaced with sheer admiration. Blake barely held in a laugh. He coughed to cover it up. Ahem. Now, let's move on to the next step. How to actually understand women. Master, we're already very familiar with women's bodies. The trio puffed out their chests with pride. After all, they had years of experience with certain types of material. If this was a written exam, they would have aced it. Slap. Blake smacked Issei upside the head. You morons. Issei rubbed his skull, eyes watering. Ow. What the hell, man? That's not the kind of understanding I'm talking about, dumbass. I mean understanding their hearts. There was a long, painful silence. Finally, Issei scratched his cheek awkwardly. Oh, their hearts. Chapter 28. Guide Issei to, oh, their hearts. Issei blinked, rubbing the fresh slap mark on his head. He gritted his teeth, but his excitement didn't wane. If this was what it took to unlock the sacred art of picking up girls, then so be it. Blake, meanwhile, kept a straight face but barely. If they actually bought this, he was going to lose it. A foolproof plan, all right, listen up, Blake continued, his tone grave. Your next step is to immerse yourselves in the ultimate training regimen. The three leaned in. You need to play dating sims specifically, reverse harem and cross-dressing academy. Issei's eyes widened. Wait, what? Blake nodded solemnly. You must roleplay as the heroine in these games. Only by fully stepping into a woman's shoes, thinking like her, feeling like her, living like her, can you hope to understand the true essence of a woman's heart. There was silence. A long silence. Issei and his friends stared at Blake, their brains struggling to process this revelation. We have to play as the girl. Blake nodded. Exactly. Play at least 100 of these games. Immerse yourselves. Become the heroine. Once you master this path, you'll understand women on a level no ordinary man can. The trio gulped. Blake almost lost it right there. With this knowledge, he pressed on, keeping his voice serious. You won't just date women, you'll make them chase after you. Wealthy, beautiful women will come running at the mere crook of your finger. Issei's hands shook. His friends' faces were filled with overwhelming awe. Blake could see at the moment of epiphany. The moment stupidity triumphed over reason. The awakening. Master, you're a genius. Issei's eyes burned with newfound enlightenment. His lips quivered, his soul shaking with emotion. We've wasted our lives, dreaming of harems, not realizing the true path to success. We were unworthy of a woman's attention. But you have opened our eyes. Tears glistened in his eyes. Blake coughed, keeping his smirk hidden. Well, I only had to master 50 games to get where I am today. But you guys, you might need 150. They stared at him, their respect reaching godlike levels. Blake nodded sagely. I hope you can surpass me. Now, I have to head to the kendo club. He turned to leave, lifting a hand in a graceful, mentor-like farewell. Good luck, my disciples. Yes, master. The three dropped to their knees again, bowing so deeply that their foreheads nearly hit the pavement. Blake walked away with perfect composure. The moment he turned the corner, he burst out laughing. Let's go. We're starting now. As soon as Blake disappeared, Issei and his friends sprang to their feet. Ignoring the weird looks from nearby students, they bolted out of the school with one mission in mind: to buy every damn dating sim they could find. Meanwhile, the students who had witnessed the entire thing stood there, completely baffled. The puppet Mystera's soft, playful voice rang in Blake's mind. Master, you're so naughty. Blake smirked, adjusting the strap of his bag. It was for the mission. Otherwise, do you think I'd waste my time screwing with those three idiots? I'd rather be training. Sia giggled. Tilda, but do you think it'll work? Blake's smirk widened. Oh, it'll work. Those kinds of games. They're a bottomless pit. Once you fall in, there's no getting out. He had seen it happen before. He had seen lives ruined. This world didn't know the horrors of trap-filled dating sims. A new challenger appears by the time Blake reached the kendo club, The day was already winding down. The moment he stepped inside, heads turned. The club members watched in awe as he began his training, moving with effortless grace and power. Occasionally, he'd offer guidance to a certain female member, a character who appeared in the original story. The training stretched on, the sun sinking behind the horizon. Before long, the dojo was empty. Everyone had gone home. Except Blake. After wiping off his sweat, he slung his sword bag over his shoulder and made his way toward the school gates. And that's when he felt it. A presence. A midnight duel. In the shadows near the school gate, a lone figure stood. Dressed in black, face hidden behind a mask, they clutched a longsword in their hand. Their stance was steady. Focused. They were waiting. For him. Chapter 29. Kiba Yuto's attack. Blake slowed his steps as he neared the school gate. His sharp eyes immediately locked onto the masked figure leaning against the wall. The way he stood, his stance, the way he gripped the knight's sword, it all screamed trouble. Blake's brows furrowed. So, he finally showed up. The masked figure pushed off the wall, stepping into the dim glow of the streetlights. His voice was cold, controlled. "You're finally here. I've been waiting for you." Blake remained still, studying him. Despite the icy tone, something was off. There was no killing intent. No malice. Just forced hostility. Blake's lips curled into a smirk. "This guy's not trying to kill me. He's testing me. See ya. Scan him." As Blake casually unfastened his sword bag, he whispered the command. Sia's voice chimed in his head, cheerful as always. "Got it, Blake tilde." A moment later, the information materialized in his mind. Kiba Yuto race. Reincarnated devil, Knight of Rias Grimori strength. Mid-class devil luck points. 1348 sacred gear. Sword birth evaluation. Supporting character. Future close friend of the protagonist. Blake arched an eyebrow. Kiba Yuto. What's with the dramatic entrance? Clang. Instead of waiting for an answer, Blake drew his sword. The moment Frost Whisper left its sheath, a cold gust whipped through the air, scattering dust around him. Tap. Kiba took that as his cue to attack. Like a phantom, he moved fast, fluid, and precise. His speed was incredible, his footwork nearly impossible to track for an ordinary fighter. But Blake wasn't ordinary. The clash begins. Kiba was fast, no doubt. His sword birth sacred gear gave him an advantage in combat. But in terms of raw power, he was nowhere near the brute force devil Blake had crushed the previous day. That meant one thing: this fight would be about skill. And when it came to swordplay, Blake had been training for over a decade. Kiba's blade shot forward, aiming straight for Blake's left shoulder. Ding. Blake's body moved before his mind even registered it. With perception distortion active, Kiba's movements slowed in his eyes, as if time itself had bent to his will. He barely had to try. A flick of the wrist. A subtle shift in his stance. Kiba's thrust missed, grazing past him harmlessly. Sparks flashed in the night as Blake redirected the attack and slid Frost Whisper along Kiba's blade, twisting the momentum into a counterattack. The blade arced downward, aimed straight for Kiba's hand. If this lands, he's losing a few fingers. Blake didn't hesitate. He never hesitated. The desperation blocked. Kiba's eyes widened. In a split second, a black dagger materialized in his left hand, forged by his sacred gear. Ding. The two blades collided, metal shrieking as Kiba managed to parry, but not without cost. The impact sent him skidding backward, his footing unstable. Blake didn't give him time to recover. With a calm, almost lazy motion, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a pitch-black sphere about the size of his palm. Without a word, he hurled it straight at Kiba. Whoosh. A miscalculation. Kiba's instincts screamed danger. His speed was his greatest asset, but Blake's relentless assault had thrown him off rhythm. He had no time to dodge. His mind raced. What the hell is that? A bomb. He gritted his teeth. Screw it. I'm not taking any chances. With a flick of his wrist, he launched his dagger at the sphere. PFF'd. The dagger struck true, piercing the black orb in midair. Boom. Bang. A pop, a harmless, almost comical pop. Kiba blinked. Wait. What? His brain barely had time to register the trick before it hit him. The smell. The ultimate weapon. Ah. Kiba's screams shattered the silence of the night. A foul, ungodly stench exploded from the broken sphere, flooding the air around him like a biohazard. His body froze, his lungs refused to breathe, and his vision blurred from sheer disgust. He collapsed onto the ground, eyes rolling back, foaming at the mouth. A tactical mastermind, Blake, who had already retreated to a safe distance, watched the spectacle with a satisfied smirk. HMPH. You thought you could test me without consequences. He crossed his arms, looking down at the fallen knight. Killing you is too much. But this is a punishment you'll never forget. The black sphere was something Blake had won in a lottery for 30 luck points. At the time, he had scoffed at it. A 10x concentrated stench bomb. What kind of joke draw is this? But now, watching Kiba twitch on the ground like a dying fish, completely incapacitated by the sheer horror of the smell, Blake believed in the system more than ever. Chapter 30. Leah Sleva. Blake let out a quiet sigh as he scanned Kiba Yuto's unconscious body. He didn't feel much satisfaction. It had been a one-sided fight, after all. But at least it sent a clear message. He turned his attention toward a particular spot to his right. His voice was calm but carried an unmistakable sharpness. You can come out now, Ria-senpai. Senjutsu makes it impossible to hide, no matter how well you mask your presence with barriers or controlled breathing. A brief silence followed before three figures emerged from the shadows. At the forefront stood Rias Grimori, her long crimson hair swaying gracefully as she stepped forward. Beside her, Akano Himahima, the raven-haired beauty with a teasing smile, watched him with clear amusement. Their presence was imposing, yet neither carried hostility. So you noticed us, after all, Rias admitted, a wry smile playing on her lips. Senjutsu truly is troublesome. Era tilde Blake-kun, you really are sharp, Akano chimed in, her voice dripping with playful intrigue. Blake's gaze didn't soften. Ria-senpai, Akano-senpai, care to explain why you've been stalking me? And why Kiba Yuto just attacked me? His tone was cold, cutting straight to the point. Rias sighed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. You're misunderstanding. The stray devils you encountered before were our targets. You just happened to be there. Blake's expression didn't change. And this time, she hesitated, her confidence faltering slightly. That was our mistake, Akano admitted, stepping in with a disarming smile. We were curious about your strength, so we let Kiba-kun test you. But I suppose that was unnecessary. Blake remained silent, waiting. Seeing that he wasn't going to let it go so easily, Rias exhaled softly and lowered her head. I apologize. It was unfair of us. An apology. From Rias Grimori herself. For a moment, Blake considered dragging it out, but he wasn't the petty type. He'd already made his point. Fine. I'll let it slide. I've already vented my frustration, anyway. His gaze flickered toward Kiba's unmoving form, and Rias and Akano followed his line of sight. The two girls exchanged glances, half sympathy, half amusement. The usually composed Kiba had been utterly humiliated, taken out not by strength or skill, but by a stench bomb. I didn't expect you to fight like that, Rias murmured, shaking her head. It wasn't a real fight, Blake replied simply. If I'd gone all out, he wouldn't be standing at all. Akano chuckled. I think Kiba-kun would have preferred an actual injury to this. Anyway, I'm heading home. Blake adjusted the strap of his sword bag. See you tomorrow, Ria-senpai. Himahima-senpai. He turned to leave, but Rias called out, Blake-kun, are you interested in joining the occult research club? He paused for a second. I'll think about it. And with that, he walked off, disappearing beyond the school gates. Rias let out a thoughtful sigh, watching him go. He really is an enigma, she mused. And that's what makes him so interesting, Akano added, her eyes glinting. Rias crossed her arms, a small smile tugging at her lips. The more I see him, the more I want him. Akano raised an eyebrow. Era tilde, is that so? But before Rias could reply, Kiba stirred on the ground, his face twitching in discomfort. Time to wake him up, Akano said, conjuring a small magic circle. A moment later, splash. A wave of cold water hit Kiba's face. Ah, it reeks. Kiba shot up like a bolt of lightning, his expression twisting in horror. Without another word, he vanished in a blur, his knightly composure thrown out the window as he bolted to find a way to get rid of the stench. PFF'd. Both girls burst into laughter. Whatever image they'd had of Blake as an emotionless fighter had been completely shattered. He had a mischievous side. And they liked it. A distant peak far from Kuo Academy, atop a towering mountain bathed in the golden hues of the setting sun, a young girl stood at the edge of a rocky cliff. Her silver dress, adorned with delicate floral embroidery, fluttered in the crisp evening breeze. She was breathtakingly beautiful porcelain skin, soft black hair cascading down her back, and luminous moonlit eyes that carried both wisdom and quiet melancholy. As the sea of clouds below shifted, reflecting the crimson and amber glow of the sun, a deep, confident voice broke the silence. Leah, admiring the sunset again. A man in a dark green robe strode forward, his presence commanding. Leah Sleva didn't turn to face him. Her serene expression hardened. Sao, I told you not to approach me. And don't use my name. We're not friends. A smirk tugged at the man's lips, but there was no warmth behind it. So cold, as always. But you can't deny it, your family's decisions aren't something you can resist alone. His words lingered in the air like an unspoken threat. Leah remained silent, but the slight tremor in her hands betrayed her true feelings. Sao chuckled softly. One day, you'll see things differently. With one last glance at her delicate, untouchable figure, he turned and walked away. Leah exhaled slowly, as if trying to rid herself of his presence. Her hands clenched at the fabric of her dress. Her thoughts drifted elsewhere. To someone far away. Brother, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. A single name echoed in her mind. Blake. Her delicate cheeks flushed the faintest shade of pink, her normally icy gaze softening. She had a vow to keep. No matter what it took, she would make sure he lived a peaceful and happy life. No matter what. And under the fading golden sky, she stood unmoving, a lone figure against the vast horizon, determined, unwavering. Chapter 31. Summoning Kaneko. Blake walked home alone, the quiet of the house pressing in around him. He set his frost whisper sword aside before heading into the kitchen, starting dinner and setting water to boil. Man, after getting used to Irie and Marina taking care of everything, spending a night alone feels weird, he muttered, settling at the dining table after finishing his tasks. His gaze landed on a piece of paper resting atop the TV, a faint magical energy pulsing from it. He narrowed his eyes. Grant my wish, huh? Picking up the slip, he studied the intricate magic circle drawn on it. A small smirk tugged at his lips. He knew exactly what this was, a devil's summoning contract. He'd received it ages ago and tossed it on the TV, never giving it much thought. Tonight, though, he was feeling a little reckless. With a shrug, he activated the summoning circle. A flash of crimson light erupted, and intricate patterns illuminated the floor. The air thrummed with energy, and Thena girl appeared. Petite, barely reaching his chest, with a slender frame and silver shoulder-length hair. A small black cat-shaped hairpin nestled near her temple, adding to her almost doll-like appearance. But what stood out the most were her golden eyes, striking against her delicate features. Emotionless, unreadable yet oddly captivating. Kaneko. Huh. Blake murmured, raising an eyebrow. Honestly, I thought it'd be Rias. The girl blinked, her blank expression barely shifting as she studied him. Blake-senpai. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. Blake leaned back, crossing his arms. Yeah, I found this thing lying around and figured, why not? He chuckled, the casual tone surprising her. To most, Blake was cold, distant. Someone with a past too heavy to carry lightly. Seeing him laugh so naturally was unexpected. Kaneko tilted her head slightly before speaking. Do you have a wish you'd like granted, senpai? A wish, huh? He tapped his chin. Yeah, how about keeping me company? Have dinner, play some games. It's kinda boring being alone. Kaneko blinked again. That was not what she had expected. All right. Her voice remained flat, but there was something in the way she stepped closer, just a hint of curiosity, maybe even anticipation. 2 hours later, Blake leaned back, stretching his arms after delivering another KO in the fighting game. Across from him, Kaneko sat frozen, her controller gripped tightly in her small hands. Again, she said, her tone dead serious. Blake smirked. You sure? That's what? The 5th match in a row. Kaneko's golden eyes narrowed. I'll win eventually. He chuckled, shaking his head. Who would have thought the usually stoic Kaneko had such a competitive streak? They had spent the past 2 hours eating and gaming, and despite her usual unreadable expression, Blake could tell she was enjoying herself. By the way, he said, setting his controller down. Can you pass a message to Rias for me? Tell her I've decided to join the Occult Research Club. Kaneko blinked, tilting her head. Quote. Really? Yeah. Figured it's about time, he said with a shrug. A brief silence. Then Kaneko nodded. I understand, senpai. Blake raised an eyebrow. That easy. No questions. She simply looked at him. Fair enough. Now that my wish is fulfilled, do I owe you anything? He asked, smirking. Kaneko set her controller down, her small hands tightening into fists. No need. Dinner and games were compensation enough. But I have a request. Her golden eyes locked onto his, filled with something close to determination. Summon me again. I will defeat you. Blake blinked before letting out a soft laugh. You're serious, huh? Very. Shaking his head, he leaned back with a grin. All right. Deal. Satisfied, Kaneko activated her magic circle and disappeared in a flash of crimson light. Occult Research Club. The moment Kaneko reappeared in the clubroom, Rias looked up with a warm smile. Kaneko. Good work. Kaneko hesitated for a brief moment before speaking. President, Blake Senpai was the one who summoned me. She paused, then added, he said he's joining the Occult Research Club. Rias's eyes widened slightly before a slow, delighted smile spread across her face. Oh, he agreed. Kaneko nodded. Then, as if replaying the past 2 hours in her mind, she spoke again. Bucho, I don't think Blake Senpai is as cold as he seems. He's surprisingly gentle. Rias's expression softened. Is that so? She leaned back in her chair, emerald eyes thoughtful. Blake Silva. A man shrouded in mystery. Strong, confident, unreadable. Yet here was Kaneko, someone not easily impressed, calling him gentle. Rias smiled, fingers tapping lightly against the table. Blake, what are you hiding beneath that facade? Bucho. Kaneko's voice pulled her from her thoughts. Rias shook her head. Nothing. Let's call it a night. Kaneko nodded, following her out. As they walked, Rias glanced at the night sky, her smile turning wistful. Leah, if you knew what kind of person your brother has become, I think you'd be proud. Chapter 32. No, I refuse. Rias Senpai. Occult Research Club. The warm glow of the setting sun bathed the old building in hues of orange and gold. As Blake walked down the quiet hallway, his footsteps echoed faintly against the wooden floor. He reached the door of the Occult Research Club, inhaled softly, and pushed it open. Click. The door swung inward with ease, revealing the familiar room. The air was warm, carrying the scent of tea and a faint trace of something floral. Blake-kun, welcome to the club. Tilda. Oh my, welcome Tilda, welcome, Blake Senpai. 3 voices greeted him simultaneously. Rias, ever the charismatic leader, smiled brightly. Akano, her teasing tone laced with amusement, poured tea with her usual grace. Kaneko, as stoic as ever, merely gave him a small nod. Blake smirked, stepping fully into the room. You're all so welcoming. I might just get embarrassed. Akano giggled. Embarrassed? You? I'd love to see that. Blake took the tea Akano handed him, nodding in thanks. By the way, just call me Blake. I've been here long enough, and all this formality still feels odd. Blake, huh, all right. Rias leaned forward slightly, her crimson locks cascading over her shoulders. Her deep blue eyes shimmered with curiosity. You've hidden yourself well, you know. Even from us. Blake chuckled. No choice. I like my peace. Kaneko, who had been silently watching him, narrowed her golden eyes. She had always been intrigued by him, someone who carried a weight similar to hers yet still managed to maintain a composed, even gentle, demeanor. Blake, Rias suddenly spoke, crossing her legs and fixing him with a determined gaze. Join me. Become one of my servants. Blake stilled, his fingers tightening slightly around the teacup. He set it down, meeting her gaze with a serious expression. Are you serious? Dead serious. Blake exhaled, leaning back in his chair. You do realize the consequences, right? Even if I'm the abandoned son of the Silva family, that title still holds weight. They won't take kindly to this. Rias smiled, unwavering. I'm Rias Grimori. I don't answer to them. Blake studied her for a long moment, a faint warmth spreading through his chest. He could see their genuine desire to protect him. By becoming her servant, he'd gain her protection, her backing. It was a tempting offer. And yet, No. Silence fell over the room. Rias blinked, her confident smile faltering. Akino raised an eyebrow, while Kaneko tilted her head slightly. None of them had expected that. Can I ask why? Rias finally spoke, her tone softer. Blake smiled, though this time, it was different, more personal, more direct. Because I don't want to be your servant, Rias. I want to be your boyfriend. Rias's breath hitched. Blake leaned forward, his blue eyes locked onto hers. I may not have known you for long, but I've already fallen for you. Your strength, your kindness, your beauty, it's hard not to. Akino's amused hum broke the silence. Oh my, what an unexpected turn. I think I'm a little jealous. Kaneko's usual expressionless face flickered with the faintest hint of pink. Rias, on the other hand, stared at him, her cheeks flushing. Blake, you shouldn't joke about things like this. I'm not joking. His voice was steady. Rias swallowed, suddenly feeling as if the air in the room had thickened. She had always been surrounded by admirers, but this was different. Blake wasn't worshipping her from a distance, he was standing at her level, looking her straight in the eye, challenging her. She didn't dislike it. Blake's smile faded slightly, his tone more serious now. How about this? Give me 6 months. If I can't make you fall for me, I'll drop it and take the role of your knight instead. Rias studied him, her fingers brushing against her sleeve as she considered. A challenge, huh? The idea of being pursued so openly, it was bold, unexpected, and oddly thrilling. She exhaled, smiling despite herself. All right, let's see if you can win the heart of Rias Grimori. Blake smirked. Then, I'll be in your care. Just as Rias was about to respond, the door swung open. A disheveled Kiba stepped inside. And froze. The moment his eyes landed on Blake, panic flashed across his face. Without a second thought, he turned and bolted. Oi, Kiba, wait, Blake called after him, but the so-called Prince of Kuo was already halfway down the hall. Blake sighed, running a hand through his silver hair. Guess I left too strong of an impression. Rias covered her mouth, laughing. You did nearly break him yesterday. Moments later, Kiba cautiously re-entered, his expression unreadable. He exhaled slowly before bowing his head. I apologize for attacking you. Blake waved it off. No hard feelings. Rias and Akino already apologized. Kiba nodded, visibly relieved. You're surprisingly understanding. Surprisingly. Blake raised an eyebrow. Do I not seem like a reasonable guy? Kiba chuckled. After seeing what you did with a sword, I half expected you to be a war god. Blake grinned. Well, I'll take that as a compliment. Rias, Akino, and Kaneko exchanged glances. The air of tension that had existed between Blake and Kiba seemed to dissolve in an instant. It was an oddly amusing sight, two of Kuo Academy's princes, standing there, exchanging what was essentially businesslike flattery. This is just weird, Kaneko muttered under her breath. Rias smiled. You'll get used to it. Later that evening, to celebrate Blake's official induction into the club, not as a servant, but as something more, the group decided to go out. The sight of Kuo Academy's most popular students walking together was enough to cause a stir. Beautiful women, a strikingly handsome swordsman, a perfect knight, and a tiny but fierce mascot. Whispers followed them wherever they went. But none of them paid it any mind. For the first time in a long while, they simply enjoyed themselves. Blake, however, had something else on his mind. Saturday morning, departure day. Dressed and ready, he finished his breakfast, stretching his shoulders. Sia, is the travel system reset? Yup. You can enter a new world anytime now. Also, your plundering ability has 4 uses currently, and it'll reset after time travel, so you get 5 total. Blake smirked. Perfect. His leave from school had been handled. There was nothing tying him down. With a deep breath, he gave the order. Let's go. A golden light engulfed him. And in the next instant was gone. Chapter 33, Sword Princess Ice Wallenstein. The moment Blake's vision returned, he didn't even have time to process his surroundings before he felt the sensation of weightlessness. Splash. His body plunged into warm water, completely submerged in an instant. But that wasn't all. His sudden fall had landed him directly on top of someone soft and delicate. His right hand, acting on pure instinct, landed on something warm and incredibly plush. Out of reflex, he gave it a slight squeeze. A soft, almost melodic hum reached his ears. Blake's brain immediately went into overdrive. The warmth, the texture, the sound, oh, crap. He quickly snapped his head down, his eyes widening in pure horror. Beneath him was a naked girl, her golden, gemstone-like eyes staring at him in eerie silence. Her hair, a beautiful cascade of blonde, framed her face like a porcelain doll's. Her fair skin glowed under the steamy bathhouse lights, looking as smooth as polished jade. And he was on top of her. This was bad. The bath itself was enormous, almost like a luxurious hot spring. Towering stone pillars, massive trees, and perfectly placed boulders made it feel like something straight out of a palace. Everything about the room screamed nobility: high ceilings, steam floating elegantly in the air, and water so clear he could see the bottom. But none of that mattered right now. Because the beautiful girl beneath him wasn't just anyone. Blake's breath caught in his throat. Ice Wallenstein. The Sword Princess. The legendary adventurer. And he was straddling her completely naked. Welp. I had a good life, Blake thought grimly. So sorry. I didn't mean to. He stammered, scrambling to get up. Thankfully, the bath seemed empty, no screaming women, no murderous mobs storming in. Maybe, just maybe, he could get out of this alive. Then he noticed something. The girl wasn't screaming. Oh. That's because she's already trying to kill me. Ice, now covering herself with one arm, clenched her fist. Whoosh. Her punch came fast, so fast that the very air seemed to tremble from the sheer force. If that hit him, he wouldn't just be injured. He'd be a corpse. Blake's instincts screamed at him, and he barely managed to raise his own fist in time. Boom. The impact sent a shockwave through the bathhouse, blowing away the mist and sending ripples through the water. Blake winced as his arm absorbed the force, his sin ring dispersing the attack. Ice blinked, surprised. Not wasting a second, she spun her leg, flashing like a whip as she delivered a devastating roundhouse kick. You gotta be kidding me. Blake gritted his teeth and raised his right arm, blocking the kick with a heavy thud. It didn't matter. The sheer impact sent him flying. Crash. His body blasted through the bathhouse wall like a human cannonball, debris flying everywhere. Blake tumbled into the night air, soaring like a shooting star before landing hard on the mansion grounds. Groaning, he sat up and rubbed his aching ribs. On the bright side, I'm still breathing. Up above, Ice hesitated for a moment before quickly getting dressed. Just then, several distinctive figures arrived at the scene. Ice, what happened? A red-haired woman with sharp eyes stormed into the bathhouse, scanning the room like a bloodhound. Her expression turned dark as she saw the giant hole in the wall. A silver-haired, blue-eyed man attacked me, Ice said plainly, her tone unreadable. Silence. Then, what? The red-haired woman, Loki, practically exploded with rage. Some bastard tried to peep at Ice. Unforgivable. I haven't even managed to do that yet. The room fell silent again. Ice turned her cold gaze to Loki, her golden eyes narrowing dangerously. Loki. If you keep talking, I will cut you down. Loki, now sweating bullets, laughed nervously. Just kidding. Just kidding. A joke, you know. Ha ha. Ha. Anyway, let's catch that perverted bastard. Ice, however, wasn't listening. Her mind was elsewhere, replaying the moment her attack had been absorbed. That man, she needed to get stronger. Meanwhile, Blake was running for his life. After being launched out of the bathhouse like a ragdoll, he had activated his perceptual distortion and sensing abilities to slip past the mansion guards. Great. Just great. I just got here, and I've already pissed off the heroine, he thought bitterly. And to make matters worse, her patron god was Loki. Loki, who was obsessed with Ice. Loki, who would absolutely hunt him down for this. He could already imagine it wanted posters with his face plastered all over RioRaRyu by sunrise. Blake sighed. Forget it. If this really is the world I think it is, then the dungeon will help me grow stronger. And besides, a small smirk tugged at his lips. The legendary bestia exists here, right? His train of thought was interrupted by a commotion nearby. No, this is Lily's hard-earned money. PFF'd. You stole it anyway, so just hand it over, you little rat. Blake's brows furrowed. He felt the negative emotions before he even saw the scene: fear, malice, and deep-seated hatred radiating from an alleyway up ahead. His expression darkened. He hated bullies. In the dimly lit alley, a small girl barely over a meter tall was curled up on the ground. She wore a loose cream-colored robe, her hood pulled low over her face. Though she looked no older than 11 or 12, she clutched a bulging bag to her chest as if her life depended on it. Standing over her was a towering brute of a man, a massive sword strapped to his back. He sneered down at her, his boot pressing against her frail leg. "I'll say it again, hand it over. Or do you want me to break your legs, huh?" The girl whimpered, her grip on the bag tightening. She knew she had no choice. If she didn't hand it over, he'd do it. Just like every other adventurer who thought they could take from the weak. Her trembling hands reached for the purse. "That's more like it," the thug scoffed. "You little rats always act tough until you get a real beating, you even bully little girls. Man, you're actual garbage." The man froze. A killing intent unlike anything he had ever felt flooded the alleyway. It was suffocating, primal. His instincts screamed at him run. He didn't even turn around. He bolted. Blake stepped forward, his piercing blue eyes landing on the girl. "You okay?" he asked. The girl flinched. Then, without a word, she pulled her hood lower and ran. Blake blinked. "Do I really look that scary?" A soft chime echoed in his mind. "Master, the thug's luck points was 42. Your current luck value is now 197. A virtual screen appeared, displaying detailed information on the girl. Lilaruka Ard. Age, 15. Luck value, 425. Occupation, supporter. Blake smirked. "So this another main character Danmachi, huh?" Chapter 34. The legendary Bastia. The streets of RioRaRyu were still bustling despite the arrival of night. Lanterns and magical lights cast a warm glow over the city, illuminating the paths where adventurers and citizens mingled. Blake walked along the road, his sharp gaze sweeping over the diverse crowd. Though the streets weren't as packed as during the day, the mix of different races caught his attention. This world felt like something straight out of Western mythology. Elves, dwarves, orcs, Amazons, fantasy races of all kinds coexisted here. And at the heart of it all stood RioRaRyu, the labyrinth city. A massive metropolis built atop the infamous underground dungeon, RioRaRyu was a hub of adventure, commerce, and intrigue. Governed by an organization known as the Guild, the city thrived on the risks and rewards the dungeon provided. Beneath RioRaRyu lay the ever-changing labyrinth, a vast subterranean world teeming with monsters, creatures born from the depths, hostile to all who dared to challenge them. The Guild oversaw dungeon exploration, regulating the adventurers who ventured into the unknown to battle these beasts and claim the treasures hidden within. Adventurers came in all shapes and size: elves, beastmen, halflings, Amazons, and humans alike. They fought not only for wealth and glory but to survive in this unforgiving world. Blake had already encountered one such adventurer earlier, a large brute with a rotten personality. But scum or not, even he was part of RioRaRyu's grand cycle of survival. However, adventurers weren't the only ones who made RioRaRyu their home. The city was also host to deities, gods who had descended from the heavens to experience mortal life. Over 1,000 years ago, these celestial beings had sealed away their divine powers, choosing instead to live among mortals in a more human-like existence. They sought entertainment, pleasure, and distraction from the boredom of eternity. Thus, they created familious factions built around their divine authority. Each familia revolved around its patron deity, with purposes as varied as their gods. Some focused on dungeon exploration, others on trade, agriculture, or even politics. Though their goals differed, all familias granted one common advantage: the power of divine blessings. A god's blessing could transform an ordinary person into an adventurer of incredible strength. Those who received these blessings fauna could grow stronger through experience, battle, and training, evolving beyond human limits. This was the foundation of RioRaRyu's world. A place where adventurers, gods, and monsters coexisted in a delicate balance. Blake scoffed as he mulled it over. A familia, huh? If it weren't for a certain tiny Bastia goddess like Hestia, or mature beauty like Hephaestus, I wouldn't even consider joining one, he muttered to himself. With Sia, his plundering system, he had little need for a god's blessing. It might be useful, but he had no intention of becoming some divine being's plaything. Most gods treated life like a grand game, their familias nothing more than entertainment. Still, he had to admit this world had its charm. His gaze lifted toward Babel Tower, the massive spire at the city's center, a monument to both the gods and the dungeon beneath. Not bad at all. Just as the words left his lips, Ah! A startled cry pierced the night, and before Blake could react, something soft crashed into his chest. He instinctively reached out, grabbing the person's wrist before they could fall. Are you Alri? Thump. Before he could finish his sentence, his world spun. His balance faltered, and the next thing he knew, he was tumbling forward straight onto the person he had tried to catch. And then their lips met. The girl beneath him let out a muffled sound of shock. Her eyes, wide as the moon, locked onto his, their faces mere inches apart. She struggled, flailing her arms against his chest, her entire body radiating embarrassment. The crowd around them had already taken notice. How bold kissing a goddess in public like that. Truly fearless. A few murmurs drifted through the night air, some amused, others skeptical. But none were outright angry, which meant, wait. Goddess. Blake's heart skipped a beat as he took in the girl beneath him. Dark, glossy twin tails cascaded over her shoulders. A youthful, round face framed large, sky-blue eyes that mirrored his own shock. She looked no older than 14 or 15, yet her body possessed an undeniable allure that defied her childlike features. But it wasn't just her beauty that caught his attention. His gaze drifted downward. A blue ribbon. Big breast realization hit him like a bolt of lightning. Hestia. The Bestia. Of all the ways he imagined meeting her, crashing into her and stealing her first kiss hadn't been on the list. Blake quickly composed himself, forcing down the mix of embarrassment and amusement swirling inside him. He cleared his throat, pushing himself up and extending a hand to help her. Are you all right? Hestia, still dazed, hesitated before taking his hand. A deep blush burned across her cheeks, her lips slightly parted, as if she couldn't quite process what had just happened. Blake, on the other hand, couldn't help but smirk internally. RioRaRyu was already proving to be quite the interesting place. Chapter 35. Familia. Falna. You. My first kiss. I've saved it for millennia, and now it's just gone. Hestia's enchanting blue eyes shimmered with unshed tears, her expression a mix of shock and devastation. She looked so pitiful that even strangers on the street felt compelled to glare at Blake as if he were the worst kind of scoundrel. The weight of those judgmental stares was almost enough to make him sigh almost. Ding. Mission issued. Join the virgin goddess Hestia's Familia. Mission reward. +30 luck points. Hearing the sudden notification from Sia, Blake's lips twitched slightly. This system really knows how to pick its moments. He exhaled softly and turned to Hestia, his expression sincere. This was my fault. As an apology, I'll grant you one request. Name it. Hestia, who had been moments away from a full-blown breakdown, abruptly stopped crying. She blinked at him, her tears forgotten, replaced by a sudden glimmer of hope. Are you serious? Yeah. Without hesitation, she pointed straight at him. Then join my Familia. Her excitement was almost tangible, her tiny frame practically vibrating with energy. Blake arched a brow. Hestia hadn't even considered forming a Familia when she first descended to the lower world. She had been perfectly content mooching off a divine friend, enjoying life without responsibilities. But after freeloading for so long, her friend had finally had enough and kicked her out, forcing her to recruit followers or face homelessness. Desperate, she had tried inviting anyone, even old men in their 70s. But without money, influence, or a reputation, no one was willing to join her. After all, divine blessings aren't unique. Any god could grant them, and they all work the same way. If an adventurer had the choice, they'd naturally choose a powerful Familia with resources and security, rather than a struggling one that left them to fend for themselves. And so, despite her beauty ranking among the top goddesses in RioRaRyu, despite her fairy-like face, childlike cuteness, and undeniably generous curves, not a single person had agreed to follow her. Which left her in a hopeless situation. And now, just as she was about to be abandoned by fate, Blake had given her a chance. I am the goddess Hestia, she declared, looking up at him with newfound determination. What's your name? Have you joined a Familia yet? Blake. Just arrived in RioRaRyu. No Familia. Hestia brightened immediately. Blake Kuhn. My request is for you to join my Familia. The moment she spoke, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Poor thing. Yeah. Hestia's Familia has no members. It's literally the weakest Familia in RioRaRyu. There's no way he's gonna accept. No one would risk their life for that. Hestia's excitement dimmed as she heard their words. Her lips pressed together, And she lowered her gaze. She knew she was in a tough spot. She wouldn't even blame him if he rejected her. Maybe this was just how things were meant to be, but then, familia, huh? If that's your request, then I accept. The world seemed to pause. Hestia's eyes widened. The bystanders froze, blinking as if they had misheard. Wait, what? Did he just agree? No way. Is he crazy? An older adventurer, seeing Blake's sincere expression, stepped forward. Young man, I get that you're feeling guilty, but you don't have to go that far. You do know that Hestia's familia has nothing, right? You'd be starting at a huge disadvantage. Blake met his gaze evenly. I said I'd keep my word. Besides, if you see someone in need, isn't it natural to help them? The sincerity in his voice caught everyone off guard. Hestia's blue eyes shimmered again with sadness this time, but with pure, overwhelming joy. A warmth spread through her chest, filling her with a happiness she hadn't felt since coming to the lower world. Blake-kun. Before he could react, she launched herself at him, wrapping her arms tightly around his waist. Ah, I can't believe it. Blake-kun, you're amazing. Blake stiffened. Because while Hestia was undeniably small and cute, there was also no escaping the softness that was now firmly pressed against him. He fought to keep a straight face. Focus. Focus. Meanwhile, the onlookers had completely lost their composure. What the hell? He really agreed. Just like that. Is he actually just a really nice guy? I take back what I said earlier. He's either noble, insane, or ridiculously lucky. Hestia, of course, was oblivious to all of this. Clinging to Blake, she practically radiated excitement. Come on, come on. We need to get back and give you a fauna right away. As if terrified he might change his mind, she kept her arms locked around him, dragging him off into the night. Blake let himself be pulled along, his thoughts swirling. Yep. This was definitely the right decision. Hestia was the best. Childlike charm, ridiculous curves, and the purest enthusiasm he'd ever seen in a god. And now, she was his goddess. From the crowd, two figures watched as Hestia and Blake disappeared down the street. One of tame, a young woman with long, pointed ears and shimmering green eyes, tilted her head, her lips curling into an amused smile. He's an interesting one. Her brown hair gleamed under the lamplight as she turned and walked away, her steps light and deliberate. In another direction, a gray-haired girl silently slipped into the shadows, her expression unreadable. Neither of them knew it yet, but their paths would cross with Blake's soon enough. Chapter 36. Fortune's Favored. Hestia, where exactly are we going? Blake finally spoke after getting used to the warmth of her grip. He glanced down at Hestia, who was still clinging tightly to his arm, her small hands wrapped around his wrist like a lifeline. In the original story, Hestia lived in a rundown temple, practically homeless. The thought made him sigh inwardly. HMPH. Blake-kun, do you know Hephaestus? She's my best goddess friend, and I live at her place right now. Tilda. Hestia puffed out her chest with a proud grin, as if bunking at a friend's house was some grand accomplishment. Blake's lips twitched slightly. Quote. Just call me Blake. MMHMM. Blake. Hestia beamed, as if she'd just won a prize. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, she gasped. Ah, we need to hurry. If I'm late, Hephaestus will lock me out. Without warning, she grabbed Blake's hand and bolted forward, dragging him through the bustling streets of RioRaRyu like a child racing home before curfew. By the time they reached Hephaestus' mansion, Hestia was panting, hands on her knees. Blake, on the other hand, barely looked fazed. Phew, Hestia, one more minute and you'd be spending the night on the streets, came a dry voice from the doorway. The mansion door swung open, revealing a tall woman with short, fiery red hair. A black eye patch covered her right eye, but her left burned with sharp intelligence. She stood with arms crossed, her presence commanding. Where the hell have you been? Hephaestus asked, her voice half annoyed, half concerned. Hestia flinched. I wasn't messing around. I was finding a follower. She quickly grabbed Blake and shoved him forward like a human shield. This is Blake. He's my first familia member. Isn't he great? Blake took a step forward and gave a polite nod. Goddess Hephaestus, thank you for looking after Hestia. I appreciate your kindness. Hephaestus raised a brow, scanning him. Unlike most people who grovelled before gods, his tone carried respect but no servitude. It was the way one spoke to an equal, not a superior. Interesting, Hephaestus murmured. Hestia, you might have actually found yourself a decent one. She wasn't just referring to his virtuous soul was clear, untarnished by greed or darkness. Not many in RioRaRyu had such purity. Hestia practically glowed with happiness. He's amazing, right? Let me tell you how we met. But as she recounted the events leading up to this moment, she reached the part about her stolen first kiss, and her face turned a deep shade of crimson. Hephaestus smirked. All right, less talking, more blessing. Get to it. Hestia pouted but nodded. Come on, Blake. Let's go to my room and get you your falna. Inside a modest but cozy bedroom, Blake lay on his stomach, shirtless, while Hestia straddled his back. The position was intimate. He could feel her warmth through the thin fabric of her dress. His senses were painfully aware of her small hands resting on his bare skin. All right, Blake, you're new to RioRaRyu, right? How much do you know about the blessing? Hestia's voice was light and teasing, but she sounded genuinely curious. I know a little, Blake admitted. But I'd love to hear your explanation. Hestia grinned, proud to be the one teaching for once. Well, the blessing isn't some magic power-up, like boom. Instant strength. It's just a key that unlocks your hidden potential. You see, all mortals have untapped abilities, but without guidance, they go undiscovered. What we gods do is bring that potential to the surface, turning it into measurable progress. She leaned down slightly, her breath brushing against his ear. Think of it like a seed buried underground. Depending on how you live your experiences, your training it can grow into something powerful, or wither away. Blake listened attentively, letting her words sink in. In short, Hestia continued, your growth isn't something we give you. It's something you earn. The blessing just lets us track it. She paused expectantly, waiting for his reaction. Blake smiled. That was an excellent explanation, goddess. Hestia giggled, clearly pleased. Tilda of course. I've been studying the lower world for a long time now, you know. Blake chuckled. Her excitement was contagious. All right, now let's get to the actual blessing. Hestia pricked her finger with a small needle. A single drop of divine blood welled up before falling onto his back. The moment it touched his skin, whoosh. A surge of energy pulsed through his body, like ripples spreading across a lake. A faint blue glow emerged, forming ancient, intricate symbols that hovered above his back. They shimmered, shifting, aligning into sequences, as if responding to some unseen force. Hestia's expression turned serious as she traced the symbols with her fingertips. The glow brightened, revealing an ornate crest on Blake's back, a furnace-like design surrounded by sacred script. In this world, an adventurer's body was like a book, and the falna was the pen that wrote their journey. Every battle, every challenge, every triumph, all of it would be recorded in this sacred script, shaping his path. Hestia's bright blue eyes widened as she saw the completed status. Blake LV. 1 strength. I0 endurance. I0 dexterity. I0 agility. I0 magic. I0 magic skills fortunes favored. Wah. Hestia's breath hitched. For a moment, she just stared at the paper, blinking in disbelief. Then, I knew it. I hit the jackpot. Before Blake could react, she threw herself onto his back, rubbing her cheek against his skin like an overjoyed cat. You're amazing, Blake. This is crazy. Fortune's favorito, you even realize what this means? Blake glanced over his shoulder. Quote. Should I? Dummy. Luck is something even we gods can't control. It's fate itself. But this means you're blessed by fortune itself. Hestia pulled back slightly, her excitement turning into pure wonder. And you have 3 magic slots. 3. Most adventurers don't even get 1. Your potential is beyond anything I've ever seen. Blake's eyes narrowed. So that's what it means. He had always wondered why his own luck value never appeared in Sia's system. She had called it a restricted parameter, something even she wasn't authorized to access. But now, staring at his status, he finally had an answer. Fortune's favored. Even he didn't know exactly how far this skill could take him. But one thing was certain, fate itself had chosen him. And he intended to take full advantage of it. Chapter 37. The Spirit of the Sword. Blake, do you understand? Hestia leaned over him, still pressed against his back, pointing at the paper with a gloved finger. Each basic ability has 10 stages. The more you train, the stronger you get. Right now, you're at 0 because you haven't started yet. She explained how proficiency worked. Each stage had a limit of 99. Before moving to the next rank. 0 to 99H, 100 to 199G, 200 to 299F, 300 to 399E, 400 to 499D, 500 to 599C, 600 to 699B, 700 to 799A, 800 to 899S, 900 to 999. To improve, he just had to use his abilities. Strength, endurance, dexterity, agility, and magic. Each skill would evolve with effort. But once he got close to the cap of 999, progress would slow to a crawl. And look at this, you have 3 magic slots. Most adventurers don't even have one. Hestia said excitedly. Blake chuckled at her enthusiasm. I see. That's a good thing, right? Of course. Magic is everything in battle. A strong sword is great, but if your opponent turns the ground beneath you into a pit of lava, what then? She had a point. Magic was a game changer, a power that could turn an ordinary fighter into an unstoppable force. I get it, Hestia, Blake said, offering a small smile. But while she was thrilled about his stats, he was more distracted by how close she was, her soft body pressed against him. Tomorrow we're moving out of Hephaestus' house, so let's rest well tonight. And don't forget, we need to register at the guild in the morning. Hestia's familia is finally official. As if realizing something, Hestia finally climbed off him, humming happily. Blake wasted no time getting up. I'll be heading out first. Before she could react, he was out the door in record time. Staying any longer would have been dangerous for his sanity. Geez, it's not like I bite. We could have just slept together. Hestia pouted, folding her arms as she watched him leave. Leaning against the door outside, Blake sighed. That goddess was a handful. You handled yourself well, a voice said. Blake turned to see Hephaestus approaching, exhaling a slow smoke ring from her cigarette holder. Hestia's completely open-hearted with those she cares about. But if you had tried anything stupid, I'd have kicked you out personally, she said bluntly. Then she smirked. Of course, if you two became lovers, that'd be a different story. Blake chuckled. I have no interest in taking advantage of anyone, goddess or not. Hephaestus nodded, then her gaze fell to the sword at his waist. That weapon of yours, it's interesting. Frost whisper. Blake glanced at it, a hint of nostalgia flickering in his eyes. My sister gave it to me for my birthday. I see. Hephaestus exhaled another smoke ring. No wonder it has a spirit. Blake raised an eyebrow. A spirit. Not a literal one. But weapons absorb their wielders will over time. Yours has been cherished, not just used. That's rare. A genuine compliment from the goddess of forging. That was unexpected. As a gift to celebrate Hestia's new familia, let me modify it. Blake hesitated. I appreciate the offer, but I don't want to change her. If she changes, it won't be Frost Whisper anymore. Hephaestus studied him for a moment, then smirked. You really do love your sword, huh? Relax, I'm not going to change it. I'll just add an indestructibility effect. No matter what happens, she'll never break. Now that was an offer Blake couldn't refuse. All right, I'd be grateful for that. Good. Come back in a week to pick it up. Oh, and your room's just down the hall, she said, turning away. Blake watched her leave, then muttered, thank you. The next morning, after saying their goodbyes to Hephaestus, Hestia practically dragged Blake to the guild headquarters. The building was massive, designed like a grand temple, with towering pillars and intricate carvings. Inside, the first floor hall was bustling with adventurers, some forming parties, others cashing in their earnings. Hestia, practically bouncing with excitement, ran off to register her familia, leaving Blake alone. Bored already, he muttered to himself. That's when the entrance doors swung open, and a group of 4 entered. Blake froze. Of all the people to walk in. Among them was someone he already knew, Ice Wallenstein, the famous sword princess. The very same girl who had inspected him like a rare specimen when he first arrived in RioRaRyu. Great, he muttered, rubbing his forehead. Just my luck. Chapter 38. The Goddess's Dispute. Just stay calm, act natural, and maybe just Maybethy won't notice me. Blake sighed, casually turning his face away. It wasn't like he was avoiding responsibility. If it were just ice, he could apologize and move on. But with Loki the mischief-loving, troublemaking goddess standing right there. Yeah, no thanks. She'd turned this into a full-blown spectacle. Of course, the gods had a twisted sense of humor, and the more he tried to avoid trouble, the faster it came charging at him. With a sinking feeling, he watched as Loki, grinning like a cat who'd found a cornered mouse, made a beeline for Hestia. Well, if it isn't the little virgin goddess, Loki teased, her smirk growing. What are you doing at the guild? Shouldn't you be at Hephaestus' place, freeloading as usual? Hestia froze, her hair practically standing on end. What did you just say? She spun around, hands clenched into fists, glaring daggers at Loki. This goddess was a menace, constantly getting under her skin. HMPH. If you must know, I'm here to register my familia, she declared, puffing out her chest. Loki raised an eyebrow. Oh, a familia, huh, so you finally tricked some poor sucker into joining. Hestia turned red, partly from rage, partly from the sheer audacity of that statement. I did not trick him. Blake joined willingly. At that moment, Ice, who had been standing quietly, suddenly tilted her head. Her golden eyes locked onto a silver-haired figure trying and failing to disappear into the background. It's him, she murmured. Loki immediately perked up, her eyes snapping toward where Ice was looking. The moment she spotted Blake, her smirk widened. Silver hair, blue eyes, Ice, is this the guy you ran into yesterday? She had come to the guild to issue a bounty, but this was way more interesting. He, meet my first familia member Blake. Before Blake could even think about slipping away, Hestia grabbed his arm and yanked him forward, practically bouncing with pride. Loki's grin turned into a glare. Oh, so the guy who spied on my Ice while she was bathing is your familia member. That's really annoying. Blake's eye twitched. Oh, for the love of Hestia, caught off guard, sputtered for a moment before snapping back, spying. Don't you dare slander him. Blake was with me all night. There's no way he could have been peeping at Ice. Blake coughed. Maybe rephrase that last part. And even if he was just some ordinary adventurer, do you really think he'd survive after sneaking a peek at Ice? Your familia would have killed him on sight. Loki paused, eyes narrowing. Ordinary adventurer. For the first time, she actually studied Blake instead of just messing with Hestia. Just an adventurer, she muttered, eyes flickering with interest. You seriously expect me to believe that? This guy fought Ice yesterday and walked away without a scratch. You expect me to believe a rookie pulled that off? Ice, meanwhile, was still staring at Blake, tilting her head slightly. She didn't look mad. If anything, she looked curious. The brief exchange they had the night before was still fresh in her mind. If he was truly a beginner, she wanted to know how he did it. Before Blake could respond, another voice cut through the conversation. Hey, little brother, are you really a newbie adventurer? Blake barely had time to react before two hands, one on each arm, grabbed him. On his left, a tanned Amazon girl with a wild grin leaned into him. Her outfit resembled a dancer's attire, thin cloth barely covering her chest and a long skirt wrapped around her waist, exposing her toned legs. On his right, a girl with waist-length hair and a more refined, composed aura mirrored her sister's appearance. They were twins, but their personalities were night and day. Blake gave a strained smile. Well, this escalated quickly. Before he could say anything, an angry ball of divine fury launched at them. What do you two think you're doing? Hestia, burning with jealousy, yanked the Amazon sisters off Blake and wrapped her arms around him protectively. Loki chuckled, watching the scene unfold like it was premium entertainment. Hey, silver-haired kid, you sure you're just a newbie adventurer? Blake exhaled through his nose. I'm not a kid. My name is Blake. Loki's grin stretched. Feisty. I like that. Before the situation could get any worse, another voice rang out from the crowd. I can confirm that Blake is a new adventurer. Blake turned, raising an eyebrow. A young half-elf girl stepped forward, dressed in a guild uniform. She had a calm, collected air about her, and her voice was soft but firm. The second she spoke, the chaotic energy of the room dimmed. Blake studied her, a flicker of recognition sparking in his mind. That voice, it was the same one that had given him that heartfelt warning the night before. Oh, fantastic. Just when I thought this mess couldn't get any crazier. Chapter 39. Publicly stealing a man. Blake blinked. And you are? The half-elf girl smiled politely. Aina. I'm a receptionist at the guild, and I'll be your supervisor from now on. Her voice was calm and composed, but Blake could tell she had stepped in to de-escalate the chaos before it spiraled even further. Hestia, sensing an opportunity, crossed her arms with a smug grin. Hey, Loki, what do you have to say now? I've got a witness. Or are you actually trying to convince me that my ordinary Blake somehow fought a level 5 sword princess to a standstill? Loki didn't answer. She was too busy staring at Blake like he was a newly discovered treasure. Her mind raced. Ice never lied, and she'd clearly confirmed that Blake had clashed with her. Not to mention, there had been physical evidence in the form of battle damage at the scene. If all of that was true, then Blake wasn't just good, he was something else entirely. And that meant one thing. No way in hell was she letting that tiny brat keep him. Loki narrowed her eyes and suddenly smirked. Blake, after everything that happened yesterday, don't you think it's time to take responsibility? The entire guild fell silent. The Amazon twins, who had been watching from the sidelines, perked up, now even more intrigued. Even Aina was caught off guard. Take responsibility. For what? The surrounding adventurers were struggling to keep up. A supposedly normal guy had fought Ice. And now Loki was demanding he take responsibility. What exactly had happened between them? Wait, Blake, is this true? Hestia, her confidence wavering, turned to look at him with wide, teary eyes. If Loki was pushing this hard, it wasn't just a baseless accusation. Blake exhaled slowly. He'd tried to explain earlier, but things had escalated too quickly for him to get a word in. Yeah, he admitted reluctantly. It happened. SSS's tilde. The room collectively gasped. Blake wasn't sure what was more uncomfortable, the stunned expressions or the sheer envy radiating from every male adventurer in the room. The idea of anyone standing toe-to-toe with Ice was almost blasphemous. Hestia's lip quivered. B. Blake. Meanwhile, Loki's grin widened like she had just won a prize. So, you admit it? Well, then, spying on Ice while she was bathing is a serious crime, my friend. So tell me, what's your plan for fixing this? Blake pinched the bridge of his nose. Look, I'm sorry. How do you want to settle this? Loki's smirk turned. Devious. Simple. Leave that tiny familia and join mine. Hestia stiffened. The smugness drained from her face, replaced with pure, unfiltered rage. You can't just try to steal my Blake in public like this. The temperature in the guild seemed to drop 10 degrees. The crowd, which had been waiting for some kind of punishment, was now completely thrown off. Wait, aren't they supposed to be punishing him? Why does this feel more like a goddess love triangle? Is Loki trying to seduce him away? Hestia grabbed Blake's arm and yanked him protectively toward her. Back off, Loki. Blake is my family. Loki, undeterred, shrugged. Oh, come on, I'm doing this for his own good. He's obviously wasted on you. The smug look on her face was infuriating. She was enjoying every second of this. The bystanders, meanwhile, were witnessing something truly historic. A public goddess catfight. Over a man. Even Ice seemed mildly interested, her golden eyes shifting between the two goddesses and Blake, as if trying to piece together what exactly was happening. Blake sighed. Sorry, I refuse. The bickering stopped instantly. Hestia looked up at him, eyes shimmering with emotion. Blake. Loki, on the other hand, frowned. You sure about that, silver-haired brat? Do you really understand the consequences of what you're saying? Blake's expression didn't waver. Yeah, yesterday's accident aside, I won't leave Hestia. I owe her. Hestia clung to his arm like he had just saved her life. Blake, you're the best. She sobbed dramatically. Loki, however, wasn't done. Owe her? Huh, that's cute and all, but you still haven't explained how you ended up in our bathhouse. Blake sighed. You think I wanted that to happen? Loki's eyes narrowed. Then how did it happen? Before Blake could answer, Ice suddenly spoke. Loki, stop threatening him. The room tensed. Ice's voice was calm, but something about the way she said it silenced any further arguments. Blake blinked. Did she just defend me? Loki visibly twitched. Ice never spoke up like this. Not for anyone. The other adventurers were just as dumbfounded. Wait, hold on. Why is Ice defending him? Did something happen between them? The way Ice said Blake's name so casually only made things more suspicious. Loki turned to her prized adventurer, still visibly thrown. Ice, completely unfazed, simply looked back at Blake, as if waiting for his answer. The silence stretched on, filled only by the unspoken questions hanging in the air. For once, even Loki didn't have a comeback. Chapter 40 Ice's request. Loki threw her hands up in frustration. Ice, I'm doing this for you. She wasn't even sure what she was saying at this point. Sure, she'd started this whole mess trying to steal Blake from Hestia, but now Ice was outright defending him. And if Ice was fine with it, how was she supposed to keep pushing this angle? Hestia, sensing an opportunity, puffed out her chest triumphantly. Ha, see, even Ice isn't mad about this, and you're still making a big fuss. Just admit it, you're just trying to steal my Blake. Loki's eye twitched. You're Blake. Oh, for the love of, you. Loki pointed an accusing finger, but no words came. Ice wasn't backing her up, and Hestia had completely outmaneuvered her. On the sidelines, Aina sighed, rubbing her temples. Is this seriously happening? A goddess catfight? Over a man? First thing in the morning. Meanwhile, Blake, fed up with the endless bickering, exhaled and turned to Ice. Wallenstein, thanks for understanding. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry for the, misunderstanding, but if you ever need help, just ask. I owe you one. A beat of silence passed. Then, something no one expected happened. Ice nodded and, without hesitation, reached out and took Blake's left hand. I want you to teach me that power. The guild went dead silent. Adventurers gawked, some nearly dropping their weapons. Others openly stared in disbelief. The hell did she just say? Did the Sword Princess just ask him for guidance? Who is this guy? Hestia, who had been basking in her victory a moment ago, nearly choked on air. Wait. Wallen, whatever. Just because you helped my Blake doesn't mean you can just steal him. She pointed at Ice with a dramatic flourish, looking as if she'd just caught someone cheating on an exam. Ice, completely ignoring her, stood there with her golden eyes fixed on Blake, her expression unwavering. Blake, meanwhile, was just now realizing how much attention she was drawing. Dressed in a white and blue battle dress, slightly backless, with a sword at her hip and long golden hair cascading down her back, Ice had the kind of ethereal beauty that could stop traffic. Her doll-like face, delicate yet unreadable, only added to the effect. And now, this literal legend of RioRaRyu was standing in front of him, holding his hand, looking at him like he held the secrets of the universe. This wasn't helping his reputation at all. The power from yesterday, Ice repeated, tilting her head slightly. I want to learn it. Blake blinked. That power. Ice gave a small nod. When I attacked, you absorbed my strike. I need to know how you did that. The guild erupted into chaos. She's serious. She's asking for help. From him. Why is life so unfair? Hestia, having recovered from her initial shock, now looked ready to riot. Blake barely had time to process what was happening before she latched onto his other arm. Blake, don't listen to her. She's obviously just using this as an excuse to snatch you away from me. Ice, as if completely unaware of the scandalized reactions around her, simply continued looking at Blake, her grip on his hand unrelenting. Meanwhile, off to the side, Loki was mumbling something darkly under her breath. The Amazon twins, watching this trainwreck unfold, were highly entertained. Blake sighed and decided he needed more information before he made any decisions. Sia, scan her information. The familiar holographic interface flickered to life. Name Ice Wallenstein, age 16, height 162 cm, luck value 924, affiliation Loki, familia race human, occupation adventurer, title Sword Princess, nickname Battle Princess, weapon short sword, sword of despair, level 5 magic, aerial, surrounds the user with wind, enhancing attack, defense, speed, and allowing short distance flight. Chant, awaken, strike. Development abilities. Hunter, exceptional resistance, swordsman, healing, evaluation, one of RioRaRyu's prodigies. Rose from level 1 to level 2 in just 1 year, fastest in history. Deeply dedicated to gaining strength. Struggling with a plateau since reaching the peak of level 5. Obsessed with defeating the Black Dragon. Blake's gaze flickered as he absorbed the data. A prodigy, huh? She had hit a bottleneck. That explained a lot. It wasn't just about curiosity, she needed something new to break through. The realization made Blake pause, weighing his options. To the onlookers, though, his hesitation looked like something completely different. Is he actually thinking about rejecting her? That's it. I'm done. I'm gonna go live in the mountains. Blake ignored the growing hysteria around him and finally sighed. You're serious about this? Ice nodded once. Blake ran a hand through his silver hair. All right. But just so you know, before he could finish, Hestia practically jumped in front of him. Blake. No. She's going to steal you away. I just agreed to teach her, not marry her. Blake shot back. Hestia narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Same thing. Ice, still holding his hand, blinked, looking between them. I don't understand. Loki, recovering from her earlier defeat, finally grinned. Well. Looks like someone's little familia just got a whole lot more interesting. Blake groaned. Great. Now he had both a furious goddess and a famous swordswoman attached to him. This was definitely not what he signed up for.
Another tale fades into the silence. But here, in the fantasy audiobook library, stories never sleep. Subscribe and return when your heart seeks adventure. We'll be waiting.